How many people does it take to turn a complete fiction into an absolute, undeniable reality? On the evening of October 30, 1938, millions of American families tuned their living room radios into the CBS network. They were expecting a routine Sunday night musical variety hour, hosted by a 23-year-old theatrical prodigy named Orson Welles. Instead, they got an adaptation of H.G. Wells's classic science fiction novel, The War of the Worlds. The production was staged deliberately to mimic a live news broadcast, cutting away from a fictional dance band for urgent bulletins about meteorite strikes in New Jersey. Within minutes, those meteorites unscrewed to reveal towering, heat-ray-wielding Martian war machines marching toward New York City. According to newspaper reports the following morning, the result was unprecedented panic on a national scale. The headlines spoke of mass hysteria, blocked highways, fleeing citizens, and thousands of terrified listeners calling police stations in sheer terror. People supposedly packed their cars, grabbed their belongings, and prepared for the literal end of the world. It has become one of the most famous media anecdotes of the 20th century, a cautionary tale about the dangerous gullibility of the mass public. Except, nearly every major detail of that terrifying national panic is historically incorrect. Modern media historians and sociologists have dug back into the actual archives of that night, revealing a much stranger truth. The broadcast began with a clear, explicit spoken announcement stating that the program was a fictional drama. Furthermore, a significant portion of the radio-owning public was listening to a far more popular comedy program on NBC at the exact same hour. Across most of America, streets were quiet. Police switchboards did not collapse under millions of panicked calls. In reality, total call volumes across major cities saw only a modest, manageable spike. So where did the apocalyptic myth of mass panic come from? The answer lies in the intense corporate rivalry between print media and the upstart radio industry. In 1938, newspapers were losing advertising dollars rapidly to radio networks and desperately wanted to prove that radio was an unregulated, dangerous menace. Newspapers exaggerated isolated incidents of confusion into a nationwide crisis to discredit radio journalism. They needed a narrative where ordinary citizens were easily manipulated, painting a picture of an easily frightened populace. Of course, some people did panic. But why? Not because they were stupid, but because of how human beings process ambiguity. Listeners who tuned in 10 minutes late missed the opening disclaimer and heard urgent reports of an ongoing invasion. Faced with a terrifying, unfamiliar scenario, they did what humans have always done when uncertain. They looked around to see how other people were reacting. If your neighbor tells you monsters are attacking, or your phone rings with a frantic family member asking if you've heard the news, the baseline of reality shifts. Panic is deeply contagious, functioning much like an emotional wildfire that feeds on our instinct to trust group consensus over solitary skepticism. Comment below whether you think you would have figured out it was fiction within the first 5 minutes. This reveals a fundamental vulnerability in human psychology: informational conformity. When we lack definitive personal evidence in a crisis, we calibrate our sense of danger almost entirely by the visible panic of the people around us. We do not evaluate claims in a vacuum. We evaluate them by measuring the social proof attached to them. If enough people act as though a threat is real, our brain's risk assessment circuitry overrides our logic. The print media of 1938 weaponized this psychological quirk to protect their business model. Today, algorithmic feeds and modern news cycles play the exact same game on an infinitely larger scale. Every time a sensationalized headline goes viral, we are falling for the same illusion of collective terror. The true terror of October 30, 1938, wasn't Martians landing in New Jersey. It was the discovery of how easily manufactured urgency can override critical thought. Next time the world seems to be ending online, remember to check the source before you join the stampede. If you enjoy unpacking history's most fascinating distortions, subscribe for more.